Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the prelim fights for UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Overeem versus Oleinik. As I've already predicted the main card fights in my prior video, or you could say a prior video. And another thing I said in that prior video, I mentioned a chance at winning a free $20. You don't have to pay $5 to enter. You don't have to do this or do that. It's very simple. And you can pretty much watch my main card fight prediction video and you'll learn what you have to do. Or you could just follow me on Twitter at King of Crackdown. Either one of those or all of the above, and you'll be able to figure out what you have to do for your chance to win that 20. And like I said, there's no entry fee, no nothing. It's free, a chance at free money. So I don't see why you shouldn't try at it, because it's free money. You risk nothing. So, but to get to the prediction, let's get on to our first fight on the card, our first prelim, our first prediction. So in our first fight, we have in the lightweight division, Magomed Mustafaev versus Rafael Fiziev, I guess. So Mustafaev, I'm gonna say Mustafa. I'm trying to struggle with his name, so I'm gonna say Mustafa, because that seems like easier. I don't know how that rolls off the tongue or not, but so I'm gonna call him Mustafa. So in his last fight, he fought Kevin Lee, and that was years ago. I think, 2 or 3 years ago. I think he might have tested positive for some drugs or did this or did that. But either way, he hasn't fought in a very long time, or at least in the UFC in a very long time. At least in my recollection. I'm never going to really dig deep on that. But what I know about him, he's certainly a tough fighter, very good at grappling. Hits very hard, very high pace, very intense, very strong in your face. And he's a sound fighter. So he's going to be tough for a lot of people. Not an easy out. With Rafael Fiziev, I think he's more of a striker than a grappler. So he's not going to have that advantage like Kevin Lee has. Really no one's going to have that advantage like Kevin Lee has outside of Khabib and a very few select people. So I don't think he really has to worry too much about what Fiziev is bringing in this fight as far as the grappling exchanges. They're only going to defeat that Mustafa just too physically opposing, too strong, too heavy. And he's fought in much better competition. He might have been out for a long time, but I think with Fiziev, I think he's kind of rushing the gun a little bit. He's only 6-0 and he's trying to jump in the UFC. Hasn't really fought the stiffest competition. But as a prospect, I guess this is your test. You could fight a guy in the UFC and see if you're really ready or not. But I don't really think he's here just yet. I think he needs some improvement, needs some rounding his skills out. I think even with Magomed really been inactive for a good number of years, that he's still going to have that, his skills. He's not going to be that rusty. He's going to be enough to beat Fiziev. I think he's just not going to have to worry about the grappling too much. It's going to be a striking matchup. He's going to be the element, so he's going to be the dictator where the fight goes with the grappling. And on the feet, and his physical strength, he's going to be able to push the younger fighter around the ring. And I think he stops him in the second round. So in this fight, I got Magomed Mustafa via second round TKO. Now on to our next fight we have in the light heavyweight division, Gazimad Murad Antigulov versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. So in this fight, I'm really only heavily to Mikhail Oleksiejczuk because really, in Antigulov's last fight, I was not impressed at all. He showed really low fight IQ, gassed himself out, going for desperate shots, but poorly defending himself, going on takedowns, was getting elbowed to the side of the head, just swung, looping, ugly shots, just going for broke, and was gassed out within the first 2 or 3 minutes in the last fight. It's not like he was fighting some amazing fighter. Ion Cutelaba was not a can or anything, but he's certainly not that caliber fighter that you should be looking that desperate, looking that bad, and making these type of dumb decisions against in a fight and really fatiguing yourself within the first 2 or 3 minutes just going for desperation stuff. And like what I see in Mikhail Oleg, I know that Antigulov might be able to have some better grappling than him, or I really looked into Oleksiejczuk's grappling too much. But just that off that poor fight IQ, when you got like a young fighter like Mikhail Oleksiejczuk coming in, who's already showing a good eye for openings and picking his shots at a pretty decent level coming in, you already just got to see he's going to pick apart a guy like Antigulov if he starts to go desperate again or starts to make mistakes. And I'm going to side with the guy that has the higher fight IQ, the better eye for fighting over the guy that maybe had a little bit more experience. But like when you're in these fights, that guy's going to, like a guy like Oleksiejczuk, he's going to pick you apart. If you're making mistakes, you're getting desperate, you're overcommitting or doing this stuff like that. He's going to go to your body, go to your head, pick you apart. Especially like that's kind of how he built, I'm not saying like exactly, but kind of in a similar way, but grappler versus striker matchup, or now striker versus striker or whatever. When he fought Khalil Roundtree when he first came in, though he did test positive, kind of similar thing. He let Khalil Roundtree kind of wear himself out, and then he just picked him apart to a decision. So in this fight, he probably going to just let Antigulov kind of make mistakes, overcommit, then pick up, pot shot him, attack his body and speed up that process, and then just chew him up I think he stops, takes him out of there in the third. So in this fight, I got Mikhail Oleksiejczuk via third round TKO. Now on to our next fight we have in the heavyweight division, Marcin Tybura versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. So you got two guys kind of in a similar spot. Like, they fought similar opponents, had similar success in the UFC. I think Tybura was more highly touted than Abdurakhimov. Like, as far as like they kind of fought the same competition. They both lost to Derrick Lewis. Similar losses, similar ups and downs. I think Abdurakhimov a little bit more losses. But yeah, basically the same spot. I really just feel that Tybura is just better in every area than Abdurakhimov. I think Abdurakhimov might be a better grappler, but I think he just has is so much better in that area that he can really use it as an advantage. Power-wise, maybe with the hands, Abdurakhimov carries more power with his punches. But Marcin Tybura overall is just a much better striker, much more sound striker, much more clean, less wind-up, very unpredictable. Whereas Abdurakhimov is kind of like moves a little bit, then his position loads up. Tybura can sneak strikes in, he could throw chain combos together. Shamil, that's the easier name to say. Kind of just, like I said, one or two shots, maybe one load of shot, 1, 2. He don't really do too many things. No real clean jab, no real clean straight. Maybe a hook, maybe overhand. Nothing really impressive. I think Tybura can just chew him up on the feet, mix it up, freeze him up with volume, and just have his way with him feet. And if it goes to the ground, I think he'll be safe. I mean, he'll be competent there and be able to hold his own there. I just think Tybura just beats him to a decision. I think still competitive, but I think the volume and the versatility is going to just be too much for Abdurakhimov. He's going to just outpoint him to decision. So in this fight, I have Marcin Tybura via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the lightweight division, Alexander Yakovlev versus Alex da Silva Coelho. I'm not going to say his name no more. I'm going to call him da Silva. So Yakovlev versus da Silva. So Yakovlev's coming off a good bit of inactivity with like 3 years, something inactivity. I forget who he lost to last, or who he fought last, and he lost in that fight. So he lost his last fight he fought in the UFC, but he's been sticking around, I guess, maybe trying to improve things, maybe some issues. And I didn't look into that, why he's been inactive, but most of his fights have been at welterweight. Now he's fighting at lightweight. Da Silva's coming in with an impressive record of 20-1, but you look at the competition, not that impressive. And then when you look at who his only loss was to his guy, 9-5 or something, or 9-4. And I watched that fight. And really, he lost to the guy due to grappling. Like, he was the better striker in the fight, but the guy was able to get some position. Like, pretty much had him on the ground most of the first. Second round, he had the guy on the ground. Third round, guy was able to hold him against the cage, then secure a takedown and kind of just grind him out, and with 2-1 and win that fight. With Yakovlev, that's what he's going to be doing in this fight. So a former welterweight, dropping down to lightweight because he wants that strength advantage and that grappling advantage against the smaller fighter. And not only is he fighting a lightweight or a lighter weight fighter, he's fighting a guy who's coming up from featherweight. So I don't know if Da Silva's coming up because I guess it's a short notice fight, or maybe he's bulked up to come to lightweight. But either way, you're fighting a former welterweight fighting a former featherweight. It's not like a former featherweight of the UFC caliber. It's a former featherweight of the D League, the Black League, Dark League circuits. It's not like the high level circuits, like probably the lowest of lowest tiers. Well, not the lowest of lowest, but pretty down low there. It's not the, well, I'm not even getting too far into that, but you're basically not the best competition. That's all I'm trying to say. And Yakovlev, we look at who he lost to. He really didn't lose to too many bad people. He lost to Damian Maia, Kamaru Usman, and Zach Cummins, and another guy. But pretty much most of those people, when I look at those are more like solid big grapplers. Like Kamaru Usman, huge, and he's a champion now. Damian Maia was a former middleweight, a top middleweight, a title challenger at middleweight, and one of the best grapplers to ever do MMA, and one of the best grapplers to ever even grapple. So we look at bigger grapplers, better grapplers than like I said, Kamaru Usman, Damian Maia. I forget the other guy, Zach Cummins. Zach Cummins definitely ain't on the level of Damian Maia and Kamaru Usman, but he's still a solid fighter who's experienced and been at this level. Whereas Da Silva really hasn't fought anybody even close to this level yet. And like I said, Yakovlev might be inactive, but this is a perfect style matchup. I guess the type of matchup he wants for Jarper down, because he wants those smaller guys, so he could be the bigger guy in there, the better grappler, and use that size against a smaller fighter. And he's probably getting maybe the best fight he can get returning from inactivity. So he's getting a featherweight who hasn't really tasted this level of competition. And yeah, he may be inactive, but maybe that was improved things. I just think he'd be able to use his size, use his grappling to beat the smaller fighter. So in this fight, I got Alexander Yakovlev via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, Sultan Aliev versus Keita Nakamura. So you got two guys who kind of have similar styles. Well, not similar styles, but I guess they want similar things to happen, or they need similar things in this fight. Like, both guys, decent strikers, but really mostly grapplers. They're grapplers. They're not some phenomenal strikers. Like, they get everything done on the feet. Where they find success mostly, if they could have success on the grappling, then it's their fight to win. Like, or it's their fight. If they can't find success in the grappling, then typically they lose those fights. Like, they're getting out grappled or not really been able to implement their grappling, then those are fights they lose. And they both kind of, like I said, that's how they kind of similar. I'm not saying they do everything exactly the same, probably not, but I'm saying both of them rely heavily on finding success with their grappling, or their winning for both of them depends heavily on their grappling. So this fight's probably going to come down to who can win the grappling battle between these two. So Sultan, I see that he's a Sambo world champion, but that really hasn't fared out well for him. And he got knocked out by a grappler or a wrestler. Got lost to this guy. The only guy he beat in the UFC was Bohan Vlahovic. And that guy hasn't been in the UFC for a good number of years, or 3 years? Probably since the last time, whatever case. I'm not going to go too far in that, but whatever case. They both, last time I'm drifting off, but whatever. So, basically, both need to. What I'm trying to say right now is that Keita Nakamura has fought better competition than Sultan. Like, what is Keita Nakamura? Like, everybody that Keita Nakamura basically lost to in the last 3 years is on a streak. Like, Tony Martin is just like on a 4-fight winning streak at welterweight, I believe. He lost to Zaleski dos Santos, Elizu Zaleski dos Santos, who's on a tear right now, and he was so close to beating Zaleski dos Santos. Matter of fact, I think he kind of got robbed out of a decision over Zaleski dos Santos because he had him on the ground most of the fight, or a big chunk of the fight. There was only like one small rally where, Zaleski dos Santos was able to get up to his feet for 10, 15 seconds in that last round and land a little bit of significant strikes. Not really nothing. Didn't drop him, didn't really hurt him, but kind of just, that ended the round, to cap the round off on the offense, and that was enough for the judges to give it to Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. So he really only lost to some top tier competition. Oh, and then the other guy, Tom Breeze. So he had 3 losses in UFC, like Tom Breeze, Tony Martin, and Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. All guys on the tear. Right? Well, Tom Breeze was on the tear, lost, returned. So a lot of different things happened. But basically, all these guys he lost to are studs. Whereas Sultan Ali kind of lost to, not the best competition. Or really, I would say, competition for competition. Keita Nakamura has fought and beaten better competition. And Sultan kind of been inactive, and Keita Nakamura has been active. But it's a big deal about him being in his home soil. But I'm going to lean to the guy who has fought better competition, beaten better competition, to beat Sultan Ali. I think that experience against going in there against better competition and beating better competition, and really having a lot of close fights. It's not like he would just go out there and get dominated. He's been in these fights. Every single fight he lost, he's been in the fight. It's not like he's just going out there and got dominated. He's been in those fights. With Sultan, in his fights, he's been a lot of times dominated. But that's MMA math. I'm going to lean on that MMA math and that experience that Keita Nakamura has to edge Aliev in a very tough, gritty fight. So in this fight, I got Keita Nakamura via decision. Now onto our prelim headliner we have in the bantamweight division, Movsar Evloev versus Sungwoo Choi. So you got a champion from N1 Global, I believe, the N1 Global's bantamweight champion, or former bantamweight champion, versus Sungwoo Choi, South Korean. So you got an experienced champion in Movsar Evloev, who has a well-rounded skill set, has power in his hands and grappling, like top-notch grappling. You got Sungwoo Choi, who's kind of a mystery card right now, because it's really hard to find any tape on him. I haven't really seen anything from him. I've seen interviews, but I can't find any of his fights. But he's coming from South Korea. He got the last name Choi, so he probably got some hands. But other than that, his skill set probably not the most well-rounded. So his best odds are probably catching Evloev with some sharp boxing, and maybe they'll catch him. But other than that, I think Movsar Evloev will have the advantage everywhere, with strength, with grappling, with fight IQ, with experience, especially being a champion in the Russian circuit. You deal with a lot of different people. That's one of the toughest circuits come from that Russian circuit. And so he's going to be a real skilled fighter, and pretty much have Woo Choi in every area. And I can't just lean on a mystery or a puncher's chance. I think Woo Choi will be a fighter, because those South Koreans don't come out there to play. They don't go out there to go out easy. They're going to put up a fight. But I think the experience, especially the championship experience and overall skill set, and being more well-rounded and be able to take the fight in different areas is going to be enough for Mosvar like Evloev to take the fight. I don't think he finishes him, but I think he kind of schools the young fighter in Woo Choi in like to a decision. So in this fight, I got Mosvar Evloev via decision. And that concludes my fight predictions for the prelims of UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Overeem versus Oleinik. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.